So Titans, Season 2, Episode 11, ELKO, even though it's E-L-Gap-O, but as we know, ELKO now, put a lot of things into action for all the characters. I mean, this episode gave us a taste of what Ian Glenn's Batman would be like in combat, as we finally got to see Bruce Wayne in person for the second time, even though that part I was on about was in Dick Grayson's mind, but still. We found out what Cadmus Labs was up to with Gar, and we finally found out what many have been guessing about Rose ever since she entered this season. Dick also takes further steps towards Nightwing, and if you watch my theory video about Jericho still being alive, then you know that in this episode they doubled down even more on what's going on with Jericho, which will springboard the unification of the Titans towards, well, the last couple of episodes of this season. So to be honest, after saying all of that, this episode just sets up so many things to wrap up for the final 2 episodes of Titans, and it's kind of weird to think that this would have been the final episode of Season 1, because if you guys remember, Season 1 had 11 episodes when it was supposed to have 13, but nope, we've still got 2 more after this. But as you can tell, guys, we've got so much to break down and so much to discuss as usual, so if you go on to like this video, do click that like button, as it really does help out the channel a huge deal, and other than that, why not subscribe if you want to stay up to date with more Titans videos just like this. And of course, guys, so many of you have joined, but I have a Discord server. I'll leave that in the top pinned comment, the link to that server in the comment section down below. Join it if you want to talk about Titans with me a bit further after this video. So I said at the end of my review for last week's episode that Gar was acting very strange while he was sat down and the camera was panning away from him while he was watching The Wizard of Oz. Now, it doesn't take a genius to take a guess at what Cadmus Labs were definitely up to something, but I didn't expect that first scene of the episode, quite literally when we had Gar in brain surgery, where we literally saw the brain. I was just thinking, man, I feel so sorry for him. As this scene unfolded, you could tell that they were trying to reprogram his mind and just capitalize on any aggression and associate it with his fellow Titans. Now, to keep this in line with me just talking about the same thing, I do want to skip towards the ending with Mercy Graves just so we can connect all the Gar scenes together. And that was very... yeah, something. That was, yeah, this isn't going to be good. Not good at all. Once again, we got a very chilling ending with Mercy Graves overlooking this simulation, if you will, where from Gar's perspective, he's talking to Rachel in the Titan's Tower. Now, all seems to be normal and Gar seems to be acting himself, and he even acknowledges the brain surgery, but when Mercy Graves starts playing that song, it allows Cadmus Labs to have the ability to transform Gar into Tiger mode and absolutely, yeah, wreck any Titan I guess he's in the room with. And this demonstration is just the most interesting of all because obviously Gar is most sentimental and closest to Raven, but this just completely severs that connection, and yeah, you saw what happened. Now, I think it would have been cool if in this moment, in this sleeper agent storyline I guess they're giving Gar, if they gave Gar in this scene like another animal to transform into, like a really I don't know, just anything else where he would have killed that Cadmus worker. That would have been really cool because she was offering Gar to unlock his full potential, which basically means, I guess, you know, transforming into a bunch of other animals. Now, I'm not ruling this out, but it's just interesting that yet again he transformed into a tiger. It's like, come on Titans, why not have him transform into something else really dangerous, because he can. So it'd be really cool if in a future episode now, since we all know this isn't going to really go extremely well for Gar, they've already programmed some other animal shapes in his mind. And also, this isn't going to be an easy fix, and it's just making me very interested to see how this is going to finish in the last 2 episodes, or will it even finish in the last 2 episodes? But maybe it'll be this like parallel situation to episode 1 of season 2 where Raven was in full demonic mode after the Trigon, little gem going in her head kind of thing, and you know, Gar held her hand, called out to her and broke through and she snapped out of it. So maybe it might be a similar thing, but you know, as I said, I don't know if he's going to get out of this that easy. He literally undergoed some brain surgery, so I don't know, guys. Let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comments. But now it's time to talk about Dick Grayson's journey in this episode, and yet again, it saw another delirious time of Bruce Wayne appearing to Dick as he suffered from a fever this episode, but this also allowed for even further introspection, similar to the search inside himself that he faced in the episode Bruce Wayne, you know, where he kept seeing him all the time. Because after seeing Adeline and Deathstroke in the episode before last, there was something that just wasn't quite sitting right in Dick Grayson's mind, and this is what Bruce was trying to point out to him the whole time, that Jericho is still indeed alive. I'm sure by now many of you have seen my theory video pointing out, that Jericho is alive theory, where I went into detail about the sign language that we saw Slade, aka Deathstroke, do in that episode before last when he was sat in the chair and he said, help me. So this episode for Dick was about him having that revelation and taking his final steps towards the evolution into Nightwing. I know they're like slowly getting there, but this episode really did spell it out even further than last week's. Now sure, he took further steps into the journey of Nightwing last episode, helping those prisoners escape, just like Al Azul, who many of you pointed out translates something close to Blue Wing, which I did search before, but I think I just probably typed in the wrong thing. Like, I think it was El Al Azul. I must have just typed in Al Azul or something. But either way, Blue Wing, which isn't a far cry from Nightwing, considering Al Azul comes down at night. So, 1 + 1. I'm guessing this is how Dick is going to get that name after translating it more or less. And obviously the blue symbol, you get where we're going with this. Now, what I said in my theory video of Jericho still being alive is that he's trapped there. Now, I knew for sure that he was still alive, but there were still some fans saying things like maybe he could perhaps be meddling with the Titans, but I truly felt that Deathstroke was keeping like Jericho suppressed down, kind of locked down in there, perhaps along the lines of, a father feeling as though he's doing what is best for his son, but, in reality, Jericho just really wants to break out and get out of Deathstroke, but Slade is like, no. You're not going anywhere, boy. This also just makes sense with the sign language we saw from Slade anyway, with the sign saying, help me. So it just wouldn't add up for Jericho to be anything other than trapped. Like, why would he go like that otherwise? Like, please help me, Dick. But Dick Grayson can't read sign language. Also, another thing that I mentioned in my theory video, I will still leave it in the cards above just in case you haven't seen it, but this could also link to that beginning of Jericho's episode where we saw him kind of wandering those strange streets and he starts screaming, which I truly believe is him now walking throughout the streets of Slade's mind, if you know what I mean. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. That might pop up again, and that's just Jericho kind of experiencing the tormented mind of his father. So as Bruce Wayne said himself to Dick Grayson, Deathstroke has taken hostages, but not anyone Dick can quite see. But what I loved about this upcoming moment in the episode, it was this kind of evolutionary montage for Dick Grayson. I could liken it to that of when you're freaking like watching a Pokemon evolve and you have that kind of montage on screen where it plays that slow music and you see like the shadow of the Pokemon like slowly evolve. I know that's like a weird analogy, and how it does that little sequence of change, and as Bruce Wayne said to Dick Grayson in these scenes, it's time to grow up, you're not Robin anymore, you're stronger, faster, like a bird of prey. So Dick Grayson has found a new purpose, to save Jericho, but alongside this has found a new calling as Nightwing. Now, albeit we didn't exactly see him wearing the suit this episode, but the shadow of the wings on him, on the floor, the silhouette was meant to really spell that out to you. But one thing I do want to add on to this is that I just loved that scene of Ian Glenn's Bruce Wayne just fighting Dick Grayson, and how it just, at the same time flipped to him fighting nothing in his cell. And this kind of just raises another thing that we can definitely talk about as Ian Glenn's Bruce Wayne was in this episode. It's the kind of thing where this season I haven't really known how to feel about Ian Glenn's Bruce Wayne like many other people. I mean, in many ways I see what Titans were going for and I like those aspects, but in many ways I have also felt unsure. Now, however, despite it feeling like a strange casting at times, I felt like the way they went about showing Ian Glenn in this episode, but more specifically him in this fighting montage, just truly demonstrated how you could envision him as the Batman. I mean, I felt like the choreography was like really good, quick, clean, and sharp, and it just showed how insanely quick Batman was, even over Dick Grayson. I mean, the way that they displayed that in these moves made me really believe that despite what some people say about Ian Glenn's age here and how they feel like he's more of an Alfred or whatever, I have to give it to them and say that in this moment, Titans made him come across like he could really feel like the Batman on this show. I mean, without even having to dress up in the suit itself. If you didn't get this impression the first time, just rewatch it again. I mean, Ian Glenn felt like Mr. Miyagi when Dick Grayson was going full on out with every swing. I mean, he was literally, as Batman kind of is with a lot of people since he's such a freaking pro, 15 steps ahead of whatever Dick Grayson was thinking would even be his next move. I mean, he was literally, Matrix style, Neo style, Morpheus style, well. You know what I mean, doing all of that, and it just kind of reassures you, like, sure, you may not think he is the right age, potentially, even though I kind of think it still does add up in a way. If he had the suit on, imagine this guy facing criminals with that exact same choreography. He would mop the floor with them. So I hope that maybe reassured a few people, just in terms of this guy even being the Batman in this Titans universe. A little bonus in this moment as well, we saw the same Batarangs that we saw in season 1, but ultimately, you know, as we were discussing, it pointed out the sign language in this moment on all of those monitors that Jericho was signing to Dig through Slade, and it was just like, well, crap, I know what I must do now, kind of thing. But speaking of Bruce Wayne, also in this episode, we actually had the real Bruce Wayne, which, as I said, I think this is the second time, you know, with the exception of when Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson would see Bruce in the first episode, that we have literally seen him in present day, for real. Like, that guy we saw in the diner was actually Bruce, you know, it wasn't like a figment of Dick's mind, even though, yeah, I'm sure you knew that anyway. And yet again, no matter what you feel about this casting of Ian Glenn as Bruce Wayne, Titans does nail certain character traits of Bruce Wayne in this iteration, and I feel like they did that again in this scene. So during this episode, all of the Titan ladies were drawn to the ELKO diner to meet Bruce Wayne. Now, not all in the same way, in how Raven was already having these visions of ELKO with the combined danger that Dick Grayson seemed to be in how she saw his funeral with Deathstroke killing him. Now, this vision can kind of mean a couple of things. Of course, the ELKO thing that she saw, which, you know, led Raven herself to there, you know, versus the other Titans ladies getting their own messages to see Bruce Wayne. But it also represented Deathstroke killing Dick Grayson, which, as we know, by the end of the episode, he has gone to go and save Jericho, and perhaps this side of the vision was spelling out that if they do not all unite together to do that, then they will all perish alone, and Dick will die fighting Deathstroke alone. So, you know, that will probably come to fruition if the Titans don't help him, and that was the warning, you know, from that funeral scene of Dick Grayson dying again and again to Raven. As for Starfire, she saw various signs of ELKO after hooking up with a guy, which also nearly turned into a weird therapy session, and you know, I found Anna very funny this episode. Obviously, she was getting drunk and hammered, just trying to deal with the, you know, this gravitational weight that she, you know, literally saw her ex kind of, they weren't really boyfriend and girlfriend, but, you know, Fede's dead, her sister has taken over the throne of Tamaran, there's all kinds of baggage there, so she's, yeah, taking it out on quite a lot of alcohol, and, you know, really wanted some donuts and things like that. Yeah, she made me laugh this episode. I'm loving Anna, to be honest. As for Dawn, she was returning from Wyoming to San Francisco, perhaps, you know, back to the Titans Tower anyway, and then she also heard ELKO popping up on the radio. Now, bottom line is that they all arrived to the diner, and it turns out that the actual Bruce Wayne himself arrives. Now, I really liked this moment in the episode because it just hinted at how Batman somehow orchestrated them all to arrive, you know, at the same time, you know, and they were all completely flabbergasted, being the right word, as to how he did that. I mean, you know, what I loved about this moment is there is no proper way to explain it unless you say he hacked this, he hacked that. Rachel just had her own visions anyway, which gave her the intuition to head towards the diner. But, you know, the explanation is he's Batman. So, like, he could have just, you know, messaged them saying, hey, meet me here, and he could have, like, signed it Dick Grayson, and then he just turns up, but he doesn't do that. Like, he does things a lot more cool, a lot more mysterious, and a lot more, how did you even do that? I don't know. Why? Because I'm Batman. So this moment saw Bruce Wayne learn about everything that has kind of transpired so far, but, you know, I think with all the Titans ladies listening to Bruce here, it was definitely inspiring for them, despite Dawn and Donna still leaving to find Gar. I mean, when you hear the Batman himself talk to you this way, especially when you know who this man is, it's got to sway something for you in your mind from the leader of the Justice League himself. Bruce pointed out that their family is a family of choice, and he's asking them to basically come back together. As he said, walking away from bad feelings is easy, and it's much harder to take the blow and come back for more, but that's what a family does. And he even goes as far as saying that if darkness arrives while you're still cast apart, I truly believe none of you will survive. And that's when he literally gets up, grabs like a bun or whatever that was, walks out the door and gets in his sports car and leaves in true Bruce Wayne fashion. Like in the middle of conversation, no goodbye, just gets up, and it kind of reminded me and just made me laugh because it was like Batman took a couple of minutes out of his likely insane schedule to just kick all of the kids' asses into gear. Like, it's like, come on children, just for crying out loud, you know, get your shit together. Do you know what I mean? It felt like that. But ultimately with what Bruce Wayne was saying is that, you know, without the Titans coming together as this family, each of them will have their own darker path alone versus than that of if they're together and united. But this is where it led to Raven and Starfire quite literally walking into that prison, and that prison is a heavily guarded prison. You know, the whole kind of lot, your typical kind of American tower, freaking guards everywhere prison, and we have two ladies walking in there. Now, it's kind of felt weird imagining this, not that they couldn't do it as they're both two extremely powerful characters, but just imagine Raven and Starfire walking through the front gate there. As we know, we've seen a lot of it from Dick Grayson in last week's episode, past all of the tower guards and all of that, which they kind of just skipped over up until the point where they were already at the cells. But this kind of presented another slightly confusing part to, I imagine, some people, in that when Starfire and Raven arrive in the cell, Dick Grayson wasn't to be seen anywhere apart from Jericho is still alive, etched into the wall. So I think we're just meant to assume, you know, Dick Grayson up until this point already escaped. So I completely believe Starfire and Raven made it in there. I mean, think about how they can, you know, Starfire can just block bullets and blast through stuff. Raven, you know, I don't really need to explain how they could do it, but it's just a little bit harder for me to imagine that even though Dick Grayson was a Robin, he's an extremely talented and trained individual by Batman himself, for him to break out without any superpowered, you know, abilities. But to be honest, maybe he did, with his newfound conviction in wanting to save Jericho from Slade, which, you know, as we know, we'll see a new fight unfold between them both, which leads me to talk about what we actually saw from Deathstroke this episode, which also finally let us see where Jason and Rose ended up. From Jason and Rose in this episode, we got to see their somewhat romantic, rebellious teenage getaway, if you know what I mean. Or should I say in a vigilante form at the same time, since they had been busting some drug den skulls together. Now, what I really like about what Titans have done with Jason Todd this season and in this episode again is that they've given lots of context into how he's feeling, you know, opening up from his jokey, somewhat annoying self into this more vulnerable side that he was offering to Rose when he was showing her where he used to sleep homeless, watching these theater kids being dramatic up until the point where he put on the suit and a mask himself. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I felt like the second Rose didn't want to be vulnerable back to Jason when he was opening himself, you know, kind of up to her with his feelings, even batting away anytime you could tell she really liked that intimacy he was offering to her. This spelled out to me that she really was hiding something, and it didn't really take me 2 seconds to figure out what, with that being that she is indeed the Judas of the group, so to speak. Not that she ever really properly integrated herself into the Titans, but for all of those wondering and guessing that Rose was indeed spying on the Titans for her father have been correct, you know, and as we saw with that call with Deathstroke, where she said that she's, you know, out of this little game he's playing with the Titans and there's nothing he can do to stop her, you know, Rose has picked a side. Now, at this moment as well, we saw Slade, of course, get extremely angry, which, you know, makes total sense. I mean, think about all he said about this charlatan, Dick Grayson, who leads kids in costumes like lambs to the slaughter, you know, in his own words there. And now he's literally just lost another child of his to the law of the Titans. So if there's anything that could trigger Deathstroke more, there isn't. It's this. So with that in mind, we also have Dick coming after Deathstroke to liberate Jericho. So things are about to get very explosive for the final 2 episodes. So you can be sure that, you know, Dick will be battling him in his Nightwing suit, but we have still yet to see what is going on with Hawk. So I think that will take place, you know, for the next episode, while we see Dick taking the very final steps into Nightwing and hopefully getting his suit next episode. I think, you know, we've still got a few loose ends to tie up before the Titans all truly combine back together. Now we've also got a Gar storyline to tackle with his, you know, brainwashing. So overall, everyone, I enjoyed this episode. I don't think it was like one of the best Titans episodes, but it definitely had many highlights, and I enjoyed it as like an overall kind of season 2 episode. I mean, obviously the hype is really alive for the final 2 episodes of Titans, as I kind of just went over. We know we're getting Nightwing, we know we're getting the Titans in all of their suits, And, you know, it's going to be an explosive finale that will hopefully set up an insane season 3 that we all want to see. Kind of a lot more action, a lot more Titans crime fighting in their suits. And, you know, given the way this is going to end with Dick Grayson being the leader, I think that will be the case. And, you know, if you're wondering why I'm saying season 3, in case you missed my video the other day, I'll leave that in the cards above as well. Titans has been renewed for another season, so make sure you get hype about that. And leave me your theories, leave me your thoughts on this episode down in the comments below, but also leave me your theories on what you think is going to happen in the final 2 episodes. Other than that though, guys, you can check out my past couple of videos appearing around here. I have a Patreon that you can check out. I have Twitter. I recommend following me on Twitter. If any of you have Twitter, I am most active there out of all of my social media, so definitely give me a follow there. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you Titans in the next video. Goodbye.